Good morning, YouTube, and today I have for you a bit of an odd deck. This is Iron Chains. It's a very fun deck that I kind of have made my own. Let's hop right into it. Starting with our monsters, we're on a playset of Iron Chain Repairman. He's really kind of a synchro starter, gets more monsters onto the field, just kind of gives you a little bit of the edge that you need in this very, very slow deck. Moving on, we're on a playset of Iron Chain Coil. He has a stat change effect, but really his importance is the fact that he's a tuner in this deck. Next, we're on a playset of Iron Chain Snake. Yes, they're all different kinds of types, which makes things a little bit awkward, but Iron Chain Snake has this nice little thing. If it's equipped to a monster with a level, then whenever that monster is sent to the graveyard, they have to send, or by destroyed by battle, then they have to send cards from the top of the deck to the graveyard, which is kind of the focus of this deck, as you'll see as we move along. Next, we're on two Marauder Captain. He's kind of just an instant synchro if you have a coil in your hand, so it makes things pretty darn nice to run as a duplicate. And since we're trying to send cards to the graveyard in this deck, we're on a playset of Needleworm. Always good standard for that kind of a deck. Moving along to our spells, we're on a playset of Poison Chain. What Poison Chain does is your opponent has to send cards from the top of the deck to the graveyard at the end of your turn, equal to the number of face-up Iron Chain monsters that you control. And since this is a very slow deck and gimmicky and stally, we're on a playset of Swords Revealing Light, a goodie but an oldie, and it really helps out surprisingly. And your goal is to try and establish the board as long as possible, and this does just that. Next, we're on a playset of Hand Destruction. This is not only for consistency, but the other thing is it helps your opponent deck thin themselves, which it may normally is a bad thing, but whenever your goal of your win condition per se is to deck out your opponent, this really helps out with that aspect. Next is we want to see all these cards as quick as possible. Card Demise is a playset. You don't run too many monsters, so this isn't that bad of a deal. 1 Day of Peace. It's probably my favorite card in this kind of a deck because not only does it make your opponent deck thin, but it gives you another turn to survive the game and get your combos off. And rounding up our spells, we're on a one single Reinforcement of the Army to try and search out the Iron Chain, or sorry, to try and search out your Repairman and your Marauding Captain, whichever one you may need. Moving on to our traps, we're on a playset of Dark Bribe. It's great, just gives your opponent a card and negates stuff. We're on a playset of Recall. For those of you who don't know what Recall does, it does the exact same thing as Dark Bribe, but it negates monster effects instead, and then gives them a card. See, you're so generous with this deck. You keep on giving your opponent cards. It's wonderful. Next, we're on a playset of Grand Horn of Heaven. This is a card that kind of fell by the wayside after Pendulums didn't become as much of a thing, but it's still a fantastic card offensively and defensively because it gives your opponent a card, plus it skips the rest of that main phase, which is detrimental to some decks. Next, we're on a playset of Mirror Force. Soaring Mirror Force. This is great because it's a little bit of an oddity in this kind of deck because it doesn't do anything in terms of progressing your win condition, but it gives you enough time to hopefully get your plays off, and it's really great whenever you have your coils on the field and a lot of lower stat monsters, so I keep it as a playset. And rounding up our main deck, run just two Wabokus, because again, gives you another turn. Nothing wrong with that. Moving on to our extra deck, we run two Iron Chain Dragon. This is a goodie but an oldie. Whenever he destroys opponent's monster by battle, they have to send the top 3 cards to the deck to the graveyard. Plus, he has the additional effect where you can banish every single Iron Chain card in the graveyard, and he gains 200 attack for each one. That's a good thing, sort of. I mean, he gives you a beef stick that you can utilize, but usually you want to use him for the effect of sending cards from the deck to the graveyard, or if you have your Poison Chain in the field and you have plenty of things to save you, he's just a nice bigger monster to keep your opponent in the line. Next, since every single card in this deck is Earth, we can run Naturia Beast, which is fantastic in this format, or any format really. Allied Justice Catastor, Armades, just to round up our level 5 synchros, this is what we kind of go for in this deck. Brio, Goyo Guardian, Barkion, because there always are those trap decks that you need to worry about. Moving on to our 7s, run both of the Black Roses, a Clear-Ring Synchro Dragon, a Churia Landisois. So nobody really runs Landisois because he's a 7-star synchro. Most people Don't know what he does. He requires Earth Tuner, Earth Non-Tuner. While this card is face up in the field, you can send one spell card from your hand to the graveyard to negate the activation of an effect monster's effect and destroy it. So it's the monster effect equivalent of Barkion Beast. Simple as that. We run a Samurai Destroyer. He's nice because he has some recursion. If he battles an opponent's monster, your opponent can activate cards or effects until the end of the damage step. Also, that opponent's monster has its effect negated during the battle phase only. If he's sent to the graveyard, since he's destroyed by a card effect, you can target one machine type monster in the graveyard and special summon it. That includes your coil. So he's great in terms of that aspect. And rounding up our synchros, we're running Yazi. The best part about him is he can't be targeted, so you just kind of keep him there and protect him with the mirror forces. It's just kind of gimmicky like that. And rounding up our extra deck, we're running a Deco Talker because, I mean, I guess we could run a Mrs. Radiant, but this is just a nice little beefier stick that gives you some bonuses. And that's going to wrap up our Iron Chain deck profile. I know it's one of those decks that doesn't really have a place in today's meta, but it's quite fun and gimmicky because it gives you a win condition that most decks don't have nowadays, and your opponent has to play around it, and it's quite fun. It gives you that nice little bit of edge, and I hope if you could pick something from this and make it your own, and then try and take it somewhere, let me know how you do. Let me know if you have any suggestions. Obviously, there's a lot that can be done with this deck in terms of improvements, but I want your opinion. So, hope you can grab something from this. Thanks, and have a great day.